Good. All in order, I guess you join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome you all to our work session for October 2nd. We did not have any exec session, so first item we have is Environmental Advisory Commission interview. Jamie Walker is here. Would you like to get up, come to the table if you want to, introduce yourself and what you see as your vision for the library?
I'm Jamie Walker. Hi, everybody. What I've realized in the past couple of years is local government plays a huge role in our lives, and it impacts our daily life and our children's lives and everything we do. So I just wanted to take a more active role in my township government.
Okay. Do you have any sort of experience in the area or just a concerned citizen?
I'm a concerned citizen. I mean, I've been to tons of meetings now at this point. I know how they work. Are you talking about experience with environmental things or? Yes.
Sure.
Well, so I have a house down the shore, and now we have politicians there that are enacting all sorts of interesting environmental policies that are really negatively impacting our lives when we go down the shore. I won't get into all of that here because it doesn't really pertain, but I just see what happens when bad policies get put in.
Any questions?
You don't have any questions? Have you joined any other committees or applied for any committees with the township?
I have not.
How long have you lived in the township?
Over 12 years.
And you have no environmental experience?
I have no environmental experience, but I see what impacts me with environmental policies, and I pick up on things pretty quickly.
Do you do any gardening at home?
I do. I
What
do
do you-
all my landscaping.
Do you plant native plants
Yes.
such as?
Hostas, I plant tulips, I plant lilies, I plant all sorts of bulbs. I know the difference between all that stuff.
None of those are native
Oh, I
plants.
don't
but-
know.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you, Jamie.
Do I stay for the meeting or?
It's up to you if you want to stay or not.
Okay.
You're free to go. Next thing we have under presentation items, we have Bucks County Planning Commission, open space plan proposal. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Evan Stone. I'm the Executive Director of the Bucks County Planning Commission, and with me this morning is Mike Brody, our Director of Community Planning. And we're here to answer any questions that you may have on the proposal that we had submitted back in February to update your open space plan.
Questions from the board?
Yes, can you explain please the professional survey? The one part that's second, the extra part on
Certainly.
the proposal?
In-house, we have the capability and ability to do like Survey Monkey. We also have a platform called MetroQuest, which are surveys that we can put together with you that we can administer on our own. They are not, however, considered necessarily to be statistically valid surveys in terms of the way they're administered, tracked, and managed. We have used consultant ETC Institute out of Kansas. We actually use them on the county, our Bucks 2040 open space plan, to do a statistically valid survey of our residents. And essentially that's their primary business. They're one of the best in the country, and that's what they do is they help to prepare and administer surveys so that you have statistically valid results. And for you, what that would look like is, I believe last time I checked, you'd have 4,500 households, somewhere in that neighborhood. There would be a random sampling, or could be a random sampling of households within the township. And then ETC works with us and working with you to put together the questions that are asked. They help to guide and make sure that the surveys are distributed, I won't say equally, but proportionately throughout the township. So that all represent, like all four corners of the township are represented. They drive the survey results. In other words, they follow up with everybody who gets a survey, have you taken it? And they drive those results till they get to the number of responses that you contract for. And the pricing, I did get updated pricing, which I said I would do. Depends on the number of responses that you want to get back from the survey. And a lot of times, candidly, we do that. If there are issues that may be politically charged, it's easier and takes some of the subjectivity out of it. So that, you know, folks can't say, well, you steered the questions in a certain way, or, you know, you predetermined the outcome. It takes all of that out of the equation.
That's a professional survey of our residents, not professionals.
Correct,
Gotcha.
correct.
Okay.
But to your point about your professionals and staff, one of the things we would likely do is we would do a non-statistically valid survey of staff and the board, just to get their opinion on where they see things based on your current open space plan and any of the objectives that it currently identifies. And that's something that we've started doing, whether it's a comprehensive plan or an open space plan, because we found it helps us to check the alignment between what the electeds and staff may feel are priorities within the municipality versus what, say, the residents may feel. Oftentimes they're aligned, sometimes they are not. So it just helps us to check.
We met with you last week, so we've been through all of this, and I don't have any other questions for you today, but I think it's time to move forward with this process, since we haven't really done anything since 2008. And township has changed a lot, and a lot of other things have changed. So I'd be very interested in finding out what our residents are actually thinking and what they would like to see in the township.
I have a follow-up to that. Have you seen a difference as you've worked through this in the last 10 years about what open space means, how it's used, how it's acquired, that sort of thing? Have you seen a change in the outlook on that?
I have an opinion on this. I would say open space preservation, the idea behind it certainly matured. So I think back in the 90s, when, you know, really, well, looking back a little bit further too, but when the county program started up in the 90s, and then we had the second round of funding, the focus was, okay, we have a lot of vulnerable resources out there. Okay, so we really got to get started on this. So it was just you know, we had the funding. Municipalities themselves undertook their own programs because there were a lot of very obvious areas to preserve, the low hanging fruit. So I think we've gathered all those low hanging fruit. So now it's more of okay, what are these other areas that we wouldn't pay attention to as much because they weren't as quite obvious. And also in terms of what are we doing with this open space? Like, you know, what is the form of you know, we're gonna have this property, whether it's gonna be a conservation easement or we're gonna acquire it. What is the purpose that we're gonna use this open space for, you know, for the long term? Because we're really thinking about, when we preserve open space, we're thinking about not just the present, you know, but we're thinking about those future generations, and also the maintenance that's involved with them. There's maintenance with open space. You have to think about those things. So I think that it's more of a reality to the situation now that we've been actually, you know, the county has been so successful in its open space preservation. efforts. And then also thinking about what is that new vision for open space beyond just like, let's beyond preserving those very obvious large properties that it seemed like there was a lot of consensus on in terms of preserving. So so I would say that open space preservation, the idea behind it, it's maturing now that we've hit the point where the programs have been, very successful so far. So it's like, how do we transition to that next stage?
And then I would just add that I think it's very, geographically based. It depends on where you are in the county and drives very much what your viewpoint is on open space. And open space preservation, we heard loud and clear in our resident survey that remains a top priority. Whether it's agricultural open space or it's just more recreational open space or natural open space remains a high priority for the residents of the county overall.
Okay. And if we were to engage you, how long would this process take?
That's my question too. That's okay.
Sorry,
I think
Stephanie.
we talked about a time frame of probably somewhere in 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep, I'll stop.
Anything else?
Nope.
We're swing over this side.
No, my question was just gonna be on the timings. I see that it's a 2-year term for the agreement, but then somewhere else it was mentioned that it's a 6-month schedule. So you're saying, 6 months to a year.
Yeah, and we do that, frankly, for it's just ease of contracting. All of our municipal contracts have a the commissioner's office, and so a lot of times we put a year and then we're still 18 months into a project, and it just makes the paperwork easier.
How much of our existing open space plan supplemental have you actually reviewed as part of your proposal? Because we have a significantly fleshed out original 2000 plan that you're not going to have to rewrite the book with the historical and or geographic features located throughout the township, which really affect how you determine whether or not a parcel is, even worth, if it's unbuildable, if it's, geologically incapable of accepting a certain level of build. How much of that have you looked at in terms of, you don't really have to rewrite that history and that geological aspect of it?
Correct, and then if I'm not mistaken, when we put the proposal together, it was done with that, and the pricing was geared towards that, but the recognition that you have an existing plan, that this is a refresh. We're not necessarily starting from scratch. And I think that's why we also recommended or the option for the survey was to get resident input. One of the things that we've done, particularly with comprehensive plans, and we think all plan documents really should be this way, is what is called an implementable plan, where it's really driven by the issues and what the residents think is most important. And those are really the action items that should rise to the top. And so, that was one of the things we talked about, is how much public participation we need to get that resident input to shape what the future of the plan is going to look like.
I have one more question, sorry.
No problem.
As far as the resident input, what is a realistic expectation if we go the route of a professional survey? What is a realistic expectation for participation in it? I mean, I know surveys traditionally don't get a great response rate, but what would you be targeting, or what would you be recommending that we try to get to?
I think we had talked about 500 responses. If you
It's households.
Households,
Okay.
right? If you go the statistically valid route.
Okay,
You can certainly go more. And then I'll send this over. It's really kind of a menu based on the amount of responses that you want.
I'd like to see the maximum resident sampling, because I think that's what we're here for, is the residents and what they want to see in their township and how the money we're taking from them is spent.
Well, I think then what we can do then is we can update our proposal with the new pricing that we got from PC.
Can you just give us an idea of what they're,
Yeah, absolutely.
you had mentioned at our meeting, but
So we had talked about 500 responses. The cost for that is roughly $23,000. You could go all the way up to 1,000 responses, which was roughly 36,000. If you wanted more than 1,000, I'm sure they could
I,
do that as well.
You have to be realistic in how many people you actually are gonna get to
Yeah.
respond.
And that's again, one of the things that ETC really assists with is they drive that response rate.
Well, actually, so if we said we wanted responses from 500 households or 1,000 households, you would keep going to different households until you got that many.
Correct.
So if household one didn't want to participate, you'd go to household number 1,001.
Correct.
So we're asking for at least, well,
Mhm.
at least 500 or at least 1,000.
Mhm.
Okay.
ETC through their algorithms and everything, they make sure that they're getting representative samples from across the municipality.
Sean, or if you're able to answer this, the cost of this, are we allowed as per state and or county guidelines for open space funds to use the open space fund to redo our open space plan?
I believe so.
So we don't have to pull general fund or allocate money from somewhere else in the budget? We
Yeah,
can
I
use
mean, given
existing-
the nature of what you're doing, it seems
So we
logical.
can use existing funds, so it's not gonna affect the taxpayers as an extra.
I'm currently not aware of any prohibition from doing so. I could look into it more deeply just to check it, but I'm 90% sure you can do it.
Okay.
Rick, do you have an opinion on that? You were shaking your head.
Oh, no, I'm just the cost of that survey.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, based on my years here and Evans, you know, in the industry for a long time and until he's sitting where he's sitting, and you're not gonna get anybody that doesn't, in New Britain Township, doesn't say they want more open space. So I think you need to be more direct, and you have to be very specific in this township. Because you have Peace Valley Park and Lake Helena.
I don't think
Which is
the
unique in itself.
questions are gonna be that general. There are more, you know, what do you want to see with recreational facilities and what would you like?
That was my
this-
next comment. Is it open space or park and rec? Because residents confuse it constantly here. They think when you say open space, it's just preserved land like you've been doing. It's not park and recreation facilities, and it's just they interchange, they
Right.
interchange it constantly here. So
Mhm.
you gotta be very specific, but
Right. It's
based
like
on
the
my-
Coleman property. Some of us
Is it
want to see
open
that
space?
be
Is it a park?
recreational
Right.
space. Other people want to see it to be just left alone as open space.
but you're not gonna get any resident in this township says they're against more open space in New Britain Township. So I don't know, haven't been involved, but you need to be very specific on what goals you want them to go after.
Right.
I think we'll have input into what the questions are.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
They'll provide you with examples from other communities, and as we discussed earlier. But certainly, although this is an open space plan, you can make this your park and recreation survey. You can include a lot of park and recreation questions within that survey.
Because the parks are open space too.
Yeah, and I think to Greg's point, the nexus between the two, the lines are very blurred.
Yes.
And so this is an opportunity to kind of do both. Because they are intertwined.
Yes,
Would you be able to provide the questions contained in a survey prior to the board acting on the survey?
We could give you examples.
Well, judging from the conversation going the last few minutes. There is a concern about the type of questions that are gonna be included. And, before making an investment of that amount of money, I think they want to make sure that the range of questions are the ones that they want answers to. Then they can say yes or no before they make that investment. I think they want to see the questions first. That may be a longer process than the actual, doing the survey, but, if you come up with, if they say, go ahead, spend the $20,000 and you give them 10 questions and they want 25, that's going to be an argument going back and forth. They'd want to see the questions first, approve the questions, then approve the contract.
Can we split the contract into two parts? Can we split it to do
Well,
have the survey as a separate part of the contract and approve that.
That's him.
Mhm.
That's his question.
Have to think about that. We probably could. You raise an interesting process question. Because I think certainly any of the questions that we're gonna develop as a group, and whoever the steering committee is gonna be, whether that's the PC and other members. Or other representatives. So the questions are gonna get developed.
So you're saying they'll have input
Yeah,
all through that,
yeah.
but to
I
John's
asked
point,
that question,
that's
he
a-
answered it, that
yeah.
we have input into what questions
the-
are going out.
you know, the cost excluding the survey, I mean, the survey is more expensive than the update.
Right.
That's a big number for you guys.
I-
Considering other projects that we argue or discuss, sorry. $5,000 here and $5,000 there, that's a
If
big.
we're,
big
if
item.
we're getting, well, for example, capital plan for next year, $20,000 to just
Mhm.
plan. Pickleball courts, so it's a pretty normal number, and since it hasn't been done in 23 years. And things have changed a great deal in
15
this
years,
23
but
years.
That's all right.
15, well, I don't know that we did a survey in 2008.
Yeah, I was gonna,
Yeah,
did you guys do
when-
a survey back?
Yeah, I don't think that, so in any event, we will have input into the questions. It's certainly overdue. And if we have funds to do it out of the open space fund and get information on park and recs planning going forward, because we have a lot of open space / parks that we're still trying to decide what to do with. And find the money for. It certainly is a win-win.
I do think the question would be, do we value a survey enough to talk to all of our residents, or 500 to 1,000 residents, and ask them pointed questions about what kind of park and rec do we want, what kind of open space we want? I think that would be a very valuable tool for our planning and our vision for the township.
Well, I mean, my only response to that is. I'm gonna sit here right now and say that if I'm a board member and I get the response from the community that they'd rather see active recreational spaces as opposed to unmowed fields and wildflowers. I'm gonna do my best to make that a possibility. Can everybody else commit to that? Because, there's this movement, on in certain aspects where, active recreational space is almost, a bad thing, because now we're mowing and we're doing this and we're doing that. And we'd rather see fields and, wildflowers all over the place. So I'm willing to accept whatever the survey says and then respond accordingly to my, my taxpayers and my residents. Is everybody else willing to accept those results?
The results
doing
will be
this,
the
right?
results, and then
Yeah.
we can vote on it when it comes. in.
Yeah, but if the results
I'm
tell
not
you
gonna-
what
I'm
you're
not gonna
not,
agree
what
with
you don't
something.
want to hear, are you willing to do that?
But that's where, as a board, we would talk and discuss and compromise.
Well-
There needs to be compromise. If 51% say they want more,
Well,
active things, and
soccer
49% want wildflowers, are you going to say you're just going to?
No, I'm not,
Spread-
I
so
just
then
said I'm
that's where
going to
we have an
honor
open
what
discussion.
my residents and taxpayers want.
And we've had plenty of residents come in and tell us they don't want to see the turf field in West Branch Park.
Do we have a turf field in West Branch Park?
Well, you're pushing for it.
I'm pushing for it? When was the last time I pushed for it? I told them to go away.
Well,
Don't put
I
words
think-
in
I
my
think
mouth,
the
Mary Beth.
residents have told us what they want. And the easiest way to end this discussion is to set it off to a neutral party to ask the residents what they want.
So is that what we're doing?
Well, if they tell us they want to see every field paved over, I don't think we're gonna do that either. First of all, we don't have the money to do that, and secondly, it wouldn't make any sense. It's information that we can base statistically valid decisions on. And I think a 500 household survey is 10% of the residents, so I think that would be more than sufficient.
Yes, question.
That survey, would that be more in the borough or outside? Because I feel like the borough would have.
We have nothing to do with the borough. This is New Britain Township
Okay.
only. We won't be asking anybody but township residents
Gotcha.
what they think.
Can I ask, try to help out with that conversation? I don't see park and recreation facilities mentioned anywhere in your goals, objectives, items for discussion to be evaluated. Is that included? Like,
No,
yeah,
this is an open.
this
space
is
plan,
nothing to do with park and recreation,
But
so
the survey,
I'm
Can
assuming you're gonna
include-
do that, but
Yeah,
that's
right,
not
right.
what so if that survey comes back and says something totally different than the open space. That's where you guys gotta regroup, and if that's not what this proposal's for.
Right, so they're talking about it, but how are we supposed to process?
Which I was
all of
gonna ask
this?
Evan also, I assume you
I
put that
think it
survey down
depends-
before you.
Depends on what
write
the
this, but if it
questions
comes
are that
back,
we
it's-
agree to.
Everybody wants park and recreation facilities, and 60% of that, they need to all of a sudden change gears a little bit on. It's still, you still need to update it, but.
Correct.
Yeah, so this should be updated regardless, but that's a whole nother avenue. There's no mention, you don't discuss park and recreation facilities unless it's in combination somehow with open space. That's not what they're proposing to do.
Hmm.
So.
How many questions typically are in the survey?
Trying to remember what we had on the homestead.
how many pages was that survey?
I think it's at least 4 pages.
Yeah.
You
No,
know, so you get up.
that's, you could get them.
20 to 25 questions. It's probably a reasonable expectation.
So
Maybe
Plumstead
Perhaps 30.
Plumstead Township recently did this?
Yeah, we're working on their comprehensive plan and they elected to do a survey with ETC as well.
Yeah, so they'll like they could set, there's like, they have certain questions that they'd like to ask and they can set, you can see, how Newbury Township, compares to, similar municipalities in other locations, and so. So they do comparisons, and then the questions can be, somewhat detailed in how they score those responses.
Just for comparison, we paid $14,000 to a office furniture company to space plan our administration. So I think this survey is going to give us far more information and data to move forward with on highly important issues facing the township, and it's only $8,000 more. So if that was okay, I don't know why we're suddenly concerned about 23,000 to update our open space plan, which is woefully out of date and neglected.
But are we updating our open space plan, or are we trying to figure out how to use the land? That's part of my questions as well.
Well, it's all involved. You've had the services agreement for months now to read and understand.
But all of a sudden today, we're talking about the use of land for park and rec as well. So
Well, questions as to what they like. Questions. The main focus is the open space.
Something.
Well, yeah, this is, I would think, the first step of maybe resolving both issues. The residents are gonna say, yeah, we want more open space, but what's it for? If it's 80% we want open space, we don't care about recreation, then they don't need to update your recreation. But if it's in the other direction, that provides you the framework on which you can say to the residents in next year or whenever. The residents said they want more recreation, therefore we're gonna do recreation. If the residents don't want more recreation, you're not gonna update the recreation. Do this first, let the outcome decide what the next step is.
There's a question.
Okay.
Bridget, pretty important, my lesson here. So my question was, what is a statistically, significant percentage, of our population's roughly 12,287, so 500 comes out to just around 4%, is that statistically?
500 households.
Households.
Household.
We have approximately 4,500 households. So it'd be a 10% at least.
So that would be around, okay. And then, I think you kind of already answered, the one about like what type of space that's what's getting figured out. Have you completed similar projects that you can give examples of? You mentioned Plumsteadville, but are there others?
I think that's
With,
directed to you too.
with surveys specifically?
No, just the open space planning and the outcomes and results.
The public has not seen your open space
Yeah.
proposal.
So,
so-
yeah, you know, we did, open space plans for many municipalities, back in the, 2000, the original round of county funding as well as the secondary, round of funding. I worked on, Warrington Township myself, back in one of my first projects was to work on Regelsville Borough. But those were just the projects that I worked on. We did many other open space plans, you know, for municipalities, you know, evaluating natural resources, evaluating community needs, looking at various properties. Some municipalities wanted us to come up with the various decision-making matrices. Other communities were pretty focused on, you know, okay, we're pretty sure these are the properties we want to focus on. But yeah, so we've done many projects with municipalities doing their open space plans.
Yeah, it was predates me, but as I understood the program, it was a prerequisite that municipalities had to have an open space plan before they could qualify for any open space grants. And many of the municipalities took advantage of that and staff wrote those plans.
You guys might very well have written our one in 2000. I don't know who had the original writing on that. Was that not Gilmore? Was that
It was either them or
Carol? Yeah.
Probably is.
Right, well, any other questions at this point? We're not making a decision today, but we certainly have time to think it over. And if board so chooses, we can make a decision at our next business meeting.
Okay, I don't have any more questions. Thank you for coming in.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you do come up with any more questions, I have to get hold of us. So feel free to ask.
Yes. Now that I've figured out where you're located.
We found the building and the law.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Yes, so next door, but there are no signs and the numbering makes no sense.
Yes.
Typical.
Okay, subdivision land development projects, it says there are none. Do you have anything else to update us on?
No.
Dave? Greg? Okay. Zoning hearing board applications. Dave?
You want me to discuss them? Or?
Well, I think
Sean?
Sean-
Yeah.
Okay.
Chair? There's one new application that's novel to the board. Before the meeting for October the 19th, it is a zoning application for variances from New Britain Corporate Center Lot 4. This is a project that's been before the board several times on different presentations. This is the lot that, as you recall, is proposed. The plan would call for a nursing home facility and a medical office building. That specific parcel has been discussed before several meetings in the last year before the board. Currently, there are 3 variances being requested. One would be a use variance to allow the C2 use, the nursing home use on that property. The second and third variances are both in regard to the amount of variance requests are in regard to the amount of parking space to be allotted. The second variance request that for the installation of 245 parking spaces where 333 would be required under your zoning ordinance. And the third would be to provide 110, that second one would be for the nursing facility. The third request for variance would be to install 110 parking spaces instead of the 175, which would be required under your zoning ordinance for the medical office building. Based upon, and I should say strictly based upon the comments that the board has made when discussing these matters in previous meetings, I did not see anything that sort of piqued my thoughts that we should send, that the solicitor should go on behalf of the township to oppose any of these requests. Although I did just review them this morning, I haven't had a chance to speak to the engineer about them to see whether the engineer's office believe there's any merit in doing so.
I do not.
I'm happy to see a variance for fewer parking spaces since that whole land over there is nothing but a parking lot that's not used.
I had that in my notes from at least 3 or 4 of you that there was already too much parking over there, so I thought you would appreciate that.
And I will say, just a little background, it got down to only 3 variances. Dave, myself, Janine worked with their staff quite a bit. They had asked for a lot more relief. I think we went back and forth for a good month, and then it got quiet for a while, so I was wondering if they were still gonna move forward. There's a lot of issues that they wanted to discuss, and we said that's part of the subdivision land development ordinance. We're not getting into the planning, designing of all this, so we stayed strictly on zoning. I don't think anybody disagreed with the parking relief, and the use was almost a given because we were working with them on that use, so. And I think one time I did get a call from Mr. Murphy, their attorney, and gave them direction. You need to just get down to the significant zoning issues that you can address. And that's where we got, we're just parking and the use. So I think the process did work. That was based on your feedback to them. I know there was give and take and they weren't too happy for a while. You know, I think they still were talking about the warehouse. And I said, look, if you can work within the parameters of the zoning ordinance, except for the use parking, I think the rest can be worked out, you know, through the process. So they got that message.
And it certainly shows the value of those informational sessions that you had with them and hearing your comments, because they were able to work with the engineer's office to whittle that down to just what they require from zoning. So based on that, I don't have any recommendation that the township opposed.
To do that, you'll need to be online.
Sorry, serious.
I would send you to, no, send a letter saying we have no opposition. So,
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with not sending them to the zoning hearing board.
No, no need?
No.
Great.
Nope, that's fine.
All right, so I guess you have a night off at this point.
Bill, I just asked John in terms of the agenda. Would it be appropriate to move the approval of the 5-year capital plan before we talk about the budget, since we have to approve the capital plan as part of the lead into the budget?
Guess we can move it up there. Only action item. All right, so we're done with that one. We're ready to go. I will now move action item A up to our next discussion.
I'll make a motion to consider approval of the 2024-28 5-year capital plan as presented.
I have a motion,
I'll second.
second, is there any further discussion? We've had a pretty good discussion before. No objections, all those in favor of approving the plan, signify by saying aye.
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 Great. Okay, so my God, okay. Now we're back up to informational items. Administration. This one won't be so quick. You're on, John.
The Richardson put together a first round, if you will, of the budget discussion primarily on all the funds, but primarily the discussion will focus on the general fund. I think everything was, all the department requests are included in there. I thought narrowed it down a little bit. To be honest with you, I haven't worked on it at all. That was this week's task. I would be very much welcome for its comments so that I don't have to waste my time. Something you're not going to put in the budget. Therefore, I can report. I think by the end of the week, I will forward to you some of my observations on the general fund. Oh, that's all I'll be working on for this week. So you have an opportunity to take a look at that over the weekend and maybe get back to me next week on am I going down the right direction or not. So.
Chair, if I may add, just
I was just gonna say, Michael, you had to.
since I was the one that primarily worked on everything so far, just so the board has an idea of what is included so far and what has been updated and changed from last year. No revenues have been updated yet, have not gone into looking into those numbers. We're still waiting to hear back from Keystone and some other places. We have to gather some more information to really be able to assess where those are going. So that hasn't been updated yet. On the expense side, as Mr. Granger stated, the budget includes all departmental requests. Those were forwarded to the board as well. I also took the liberty of adding in, just to keep pace with what we're doing, everything from the capital plan for 2024 is also included in this. All wages have been updated to reflect the appropriate wages based on the police department's contract. So all non-uniform, uniform wages have been updated. The health insurance has been updated to reflect currently a 5% increase, as well as the property and liability has also been updated to represent a 5% increase from last year. If the board has any questions or anything, please let John, myself know, or get in touch with department heads about what you might have specific questions about. You just include John and I in that, like John said, so we can be on top of it and make sure we're getting the appropriate responses that the board requires.
Well, since we have our department heads here, is there anything that they would like to highlight that is a significant change from previous years? That's why we have a morning meeting, so.
Ryan?
I don't think so. You'll notice with my requests. The major increase was the building maintenance. I think I doubled it, and that was just to do some. It was to complete the retaining wall that we had discussed years ago. That was either cut or removed for whatever reason. But that includes that, and it includes the upgrade to some LED lighting at our facility.
And were we not talking about signs?
Oh, street signs. So that line item, in the previous years, we've only budgeted $5,000. I bumped that up $20,000 based off of a survey that we did in-house of everything that we have. We found that there's over 300, I believe, plus signs that need to be upgraded to the new HID standard. And when I got pricing for that, it turned out to be, I want to say, $16,000. And that the budget line item wouldn't include just signage. It would include posts, bases, hardware, anything pertaining to signs, not just signs.
And I'm gonna follow up on Ryan talking about specific issue that was the board discussed at last week's meeting, the sidewalk down on Park Avenue. I had posed a question to the board when I updated that, and I hadn't heard any response, so I'd just like to ask now, clearly we've adopted the capital plan already. But would the board like to see the cost of those sidewalks being with Ryan included in the operational budget for 2024? Just some guidance so we can include that. If need be, that's not currently in here because I hadn't heard any feedback, so I'm asking for that now.
Can you clarify which sidewalk on Park Avenue are you talking about, the location?
I'll let Ryan answer that. He's been down there looking at
Between
it.
West Fairwood and West Fairwood.
So Mary Beth had approached me some time ago in regards to the sidewalk that goes in between the West Fairwood entrances. It is township property, that stretch. After looking at it, there are, I believe, 28 4x4 slabs that need repair or replacement due to either a trip hazard or spalling. That does not include ADA ramp upgrades. But based off of what I found, the 28 slabs that would need replacement is approximately $16,000 roughly to do that, based off of this year's liquid fuels numbers.
Okay, so we are not talking about what's right out front of the township building. I thought that was the prices
No,
that John had given
It's
us.
here, and then there's a paved asphalt trail from township up to the first entrance at West Fairwood. And then on the other side, it's concrete. That's in front of the open space area there. And there's two main areas that are really just disintegrating. So.
Do any of them and do any of the areas need repair involve a ramp, or is it all just four by fours? The ramps are
So
okay.
there's two handicap ramps on each side of each entrance. There is one that would essentially need repair because it is falling. But the main repairs are not within that stretch.
So at this point, to make absolutely sure, we would have to repair at least that one handicap ramp since it's in bad condition. Plus the 24 blocks.
Yeah,
28
28, I believe there's 28.
Okay. But we wouldn't have to replace the other three handicap at this point until such time as we're getting ready to do the paving of those streets.
That would be my understanding, yes.
It's Park Avenue, so we'll never be paving Park Avenue.
No, no, no.
No, the entrances are on
West
West.
Fair.
When we're
Yeah.
doing Fairwood,
Okay.
okay?
I would like to see a memo clearly stating what the prices would be, what the scope of the project would be before I really say yes or no at this point, only because we're all talking about it, we're all not quite sure what we're all talking about and numbers and things. I would like to see it in black and white before we just
Well,
make sure.
That's fine, but I think we need to get it done. This is township property, and if someone trips and falls
Mhm.
because of the sidewalk that's been disintegrating for the last 10 years, it's gonna cost us a lot more.
So in order to keep this forward, and I think we can do both things, I'm just looking for authorization to start putting it in. As we go through the process, we can make sure we outline to the board, if it's in the budget, where it is, how much it costs, we can make sure we outline that and achieve both goals.
Yes,
I
I think
would-
we all agree that it's something that we need to do maintenance on.
It should be put in.
Am I
agree.
correct on that?
So am I correct to understand that you want out here done as well then?
Yeah, John?
Well, I think the board may want to consider the frontage of this building. After you make a decision what you're gonna do with respect to the police building.
Right.
Because it would
Okay.
No,
pack
wait,
stuff.
Right.
If you're gonna do something here and you have all those trucks coming in, if you can damage something you already fixed.
Right.
So, and it, I would do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Can we please have all that information all in one spot? Like for out front and for down there, and say exactly what ramps we'd have to fix and all that sort of thing. Just put it all in one piece of paper.
Did you, it's not included in requests or capital plan?
Out
No.
here?
Put down
No,
there.
up there, the sidewalk, the 28 and,
No.
okay.
We have a line item for roadway, curb, sidewalk. It doesn't have anything budgeted.
So we can add to that budget.
That's what I'm saying. If we
Yeah.
want to, once we get those exact figures, or those comparable figures, that's the line item it could be added to.
Yeah.
And I would say that it should be added there rather than, trying to change our capital plan at this point.
That was kind of my thought. I hadn't heard anything back, so I did not add it to the capital plan based on my email, so. The process forward would be to add it as an operational item in 2024 to the budget.
That's what everybody wants at this point.
Yes,
We will work on getting that specific information.
I had been looking for it before and I'm looking for it again. The roof and the gutter, I don't see that in the budget.
So if you
Because
go.
it's part of the capital plan and I didn't, unless
It did
it's,
not
unless
carry
I
Forward.
can't
building maintenance.
Find it.
It did not, it is under capital equipment,
capital equipment under which,
under $225,000, that is the roof and gutters. That was what it is in the capital plan.
225. It's under utility. Oh, there we go. There it is. Gotcha. There it is. Because I saw the 225 down below. Okay, very good. In the capital equipment and then, but that's for the park capital improvements and purchases. Okay, very good.
Just have.
It's
one
always
question.
fun looking at this.
One question.
Minor
We have-
relief.
We have a $40,000 item for Public Works building.
Yes.
Is that to
The building maintenance.
It's under PW building.
GON series 205,
That
2005.
was the, I believe, was Mary Beth referencing the conversation you and I had Friday morning. And I believe that was the retaining wall.
Yeah.
If I
Oh, that's
That's-
across the
it is-
retaining wall?
No,
No,
that's
no,
a
no.
loan,
Oh,
because it says principal and interest
okay.
Oh,
to me.
where are we talking about? Say that
So,
again?
I'm sorry, I might be confused, but I thought there was something you were requesting for replacing the old barn?
GON series 2020 bridge repair, the very last batch on the last page, page 3.
No, that,
I might be confused, we're
I was
might be
gonna
talking
say,
Going all the way across.
two separate things.
I believe you are, but
Those are all the debt services for the
Okay,
police
all right.
building, streetlights and the refinance we did in 2020.
What, I know we had discussed this before, what do you suspect or expect the cost for the retaining wall to be? Just ballpark.
12 to 15.
Okay.
Based off materials.
And well, those debt services numbers are accurate for next year as well.
Chief, is there anything you'd like to add to about your budget?
Yeah, there are a couple things I just want to make sure the board is aware of. One of the line items that we're significantly increasing is the equipment purchases. That would be one of the name part cameras that we signed an agreement for. That is 100% reimbursable, but it's still budgeted. And then the renovations to the police department includes the improvements that are on the capital improvement plan. And of course, that's something we'll have to discuss once we know which path we're going with the facility. But they're in there as placeholders.
Just which line item is the in-car cameras?
The equipment purchases, 410, 750.
410, 750, okay, thank you. Is there anything that Michael or John would like to include about the administration requests?
As far as the administration request, most of that, I went through and looked over. We've talked about increasing training for staff, so that's been included, which also includes the educational conferences under general admin expenses. That's where we've been paying that out of. So we're right up against that as of the end of July. And wanting to make sure we have enough money going throughout the year to continue training in case opportunities arise, things like that, to make sure we have the funding for that throughout the year.
Okay.
I also increased codification expenses. And we continue to discuss updates and everything to these ordinances we discussed last time. We just spent about $4,000 on updating our code. So if this board continues to update those things, as I believe they will, wanting to make sure we have enough of those funds in that line item to make sure we're covering those expenses. You will see some expenses like telecommunications reduced because we were able to implement the new phone system this year. We're kind of reverting back to what our annual costs are going to be on a regular basis for that, to make sure we're covering those expenses. With the software licenses and things like that, we will have implemented Tracer hopefully by the end of this year. That was significant expense this year. So that's coming down, but wanted to leave enough money in there. Because I will be recreating, now that we've upgraded a lot of the computers, reestablishing a computer replacement plan. Generally trying to replace staff and technology and things for the board and everything, to make sure we're upgrading that every 5 years, to just make sure we're not falling behind on those things that we need in the administration building. To keep everything functioning. Other than that, I also, you'll see the building maintenance line item is about $80,000. That is to continue to include landscaping. As we've discussed, we're looking at this building. I don't know what that means for any of it, but to make sure that that remains to be included throughout. That way, if we so choose to move forward with that project, I bumped that from $15,000 last year to about 20 to make sure we have enough for all that to get completed. Other than that, any other major updates were handled through the wages. Dave and I met a few times to discuss some of the stuff from planning and zoning. The main thing we continue to monitor, and Dave and I will have to get with Sheila to go over, is we're just paying attention to where our engineering and legal expenses are going. Some are very under, some are very over, so we just have to start reviewing that to just make sure that we're keeping those numbers as accurate as possible moving forward. But those may have adjustments as we get closer to the preliminary budget.
It's probably not, the appropriate time to talk about it now, but are we having an executive session after the meeting? I didn't see anything, but I know John sent out a series of considerations that are going to impact the budget, in terms of
I think,
staff and salary, that we need to have those conversations sooner rather than later.
well, I agree sooner, but I don't think it's necessary to do it today.
Yeah.
I think the question was, give all of us time to review them.
Mhm.
And
Well, I know I had some questions, and I didn't necessarily know if we wanted to talk about it in the public setting, or if we wanted to go in an executive session.
I think we need to have a short exec session because we definitely need to talk about the finance department and what we want to do going forward with that. I think it's important to get started on that.
To be clear, you mean the staffing of the finance department?
Yes,
So it's a personnel matter.
yes, it is.
Yeah, that's personnel as well, so.
okay, well, if that is consensus, then I guess we're gonna have an executive session.
Okay, well, then I won't ask any of the questions I was gonna ask about personnel.
Okay. Are there any questions at this point with the 2024 budget? Good at this point, and again, it's just the first cut. First draft.
Yeah.
No, we're not there yet. Okay, next item would be police. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah.
Okay. Public Works, since you're here, anything to add?
No, just an update from the last meeting, the 2023 road program paving aspect was completed. They still have to do the sealing of all the joints. But the actual paving is completed.
Okay. What was that total bill?
The total invoice was $218,000, which was significantly under what we did the project.
Nothing else? Park and Recreation? Everybody's here to defend themselves. I guess I'll just put a shout out to Park and Recreation and Public Works for the event on Saturday. I saw a number of them running around in their little carts back and forth. Lighting up the fields and everything. So if there's nothing else, finance? We've already discussed that one, so. Down to board comments. I'll start at this end, Greg.
So to second your comments in regards to Saturday, I have to say, I think we owe a giant thank you to Mike and Christine. I have never been part of an event that has had so many moving parts that we were trying to manipulate and try to get right, and have an event in a safe manner and have as many wrenches thrown at it at the last couple of minutes as Saturday night. And I have to say, Mike, you handled it with aplomb, and it was amazing, the work you did. The coordination between the fire police, the police department, the fire department, the EMS, our public works. Thank you to the guys that came out on Saturday night and took care of the event. It was amazing. Thank you, Mike. It was amazing to see everything go as smoothly as it did. Especially considering we were going to have parking, then we weren't gonna have parking, and then we didn't have parking.
It was very difficult. Thank you very much, but you know, credit goes to everybody else that was involved. That's what makes it run smoothly. You know, the real trick is just to get out of the police and everybody else's way and let them do what they're trained to do and what they do with their daily lives when it comes to the safety of that event. You know, Christine, thank you. Tricentennial Committee, thank you. Just everybody that was there at the event, volunteering, helping usher people into the park, helping them get on buses, that kind of stuff. Just thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
No, it was a
Yeah.
job well done, and the residents loved it. So it was a great event. And it was well done. Thank you, chief. Thank you to your officers. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you to your staff and to the police or to the fire department and EMS and everyone else. Thank you as well. It was fantastic. It gave me goosebumps to have fireworks here in the township again, and it was a special night. So.
Anything?
I don't think.
Mary Beth?
Yeah, I just want to put a big thank you to staff. All of our departments that work together with the 300th committee to put on the fireworks, and thank you to the members of the 300th committee who have been working all year long and who came up with the idea for the fireworks. And yes, the residents loved it, and I'd like to see some sort of reinstatement of the annual fireworks that we used to have.
Are you suggesting putting that in the budget somewhere?
Well,
I just need things we need to know.
the township actually didn't pay for the fireworks.
I know, but that doesn't necessarily mean
Well,
So I don't know that it needs to be into
that's
the
a
budget,
roundabout.
but it's just a comment. These are just comments.
It should be going forward. Yes, it should be.
I'll make that very clear.
So one time,
We do it every month.
we'll say 400, right?
Because we've thanked everybody here, but we have not thanked our sponsors for the event. Gilmore and Associates and our solicitors, Begley, Collin and Mendino.
I was
So thank
interrupted
you
in
so
my
much.
comments, so,
No.
but thank you for finishing up for me.
Yes, yes, yeah. Thank you for everybody that was involved in this.
Yes, it was a wonderful community event and everyone enjoyed it, and
Yeah. Very much so.
yes. Thank you. Thank you to our sponsors.
anything else.
They're one.
Okay, if we've done that, we're down now to public comment. Any public comment?
Hi, I'm Sean Coleman. I own Coleman Hay Farms right on Water Road. Came, I guess, 2 or 3 meetings ago and wasn't able to make the last couple ones. In regards to farming the Veterans Park, I wanted to see what the process was with that. And I talked to Sean last time and said we're gonna look into it. Didn't know where that has gone since then.
Mr. Chair, in furtherance of that, I did put in a request. I spoke with Dan Greaser, who is with the law department in Bucks County, to ask about an amendment of the lease that we have with the community, with the county concerning that parcel. He did do some research on it, looked into it, and was interested in discussing it further. He said he was checking on 1 or 2 things on the county side. So further than that, I have had the discussion and we are in discussions. Beyond that, I don't have any further information at this time.
I'm sorry, is it Dan, what's the last name?
Greaser, Greiser.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to.
Sorry, Greiser.
I'd like us to follow up on that because how many acres is it that's sitting there?
I haven't mapped it. I can map it out, but it's
Ballpark?
like 25 to 35, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple fields way in the back.
And there's no maintenance or anything, we don't mow it, it's just open.
It's just growing up the weeds.
Okay.
Anybody else? Public comment? Announcements?
Your executive session,
Pardon?
just your executive session.
We have an executive session coming up after the meeting. And our next meeting of the supervisors will take place on Monday, October 16th at 7 p.m. Township Building. A recording of this meeting will be available tomorrow on our website. Any questions?
That executive session after the meeting is to discuss personnel matters.
Okay,
Thank you for coming and patience and sitting through the whole meeting.
is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
For a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.